Welcome to today's webinar, Firewall as a Service Beyond the Next Generation Firewall. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You're welcome to submit questions at any time using the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen. We will go over all questions at the end of the webinar. And of course, there will also be a recording of this webcast available within a couple of days. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Yishai Yoval, VP of Marketing at Cato Networks. Yishai has over 25 years of experience in defining and deploying enterprise IT software solutions in the areas of security, storage, business continuity, and mobile computing. Yishai, please get us started.
Thank you, Bonnie, and welcome everybody to our webinar. I'm very excited to introduce this innovative, groundbreaking technology, which basically takes our established network firewalls and offer them as a cloud service. Few words about our founders. Shlomo Kramer, our CEO, is the co-founder of Checkpoint, the company that innovated the first network firewall, and later led Imperva, the company that invented the web application firewall to protecting business applications. Gur Schatz, our CTO, was the co-founder of Incapsula, one of the first cloud-based CDNs. Together, they bring to the company both security and networking experience, which are essential to deliver a solution like Cato Networks. What are the challenges of using appliances, specifically next-generation firewalls, for network security? The first problem is appliance sprawl. In order to protect the different parts of our business, we have to put appliances in the line of sight of the data. And if you have multiple locations, branch offices, data centers, etc., you basically have to deploy a piece in each one of them. This creates a management problem. Spends a lot of capital, both buying those solutions as well as managing them. The next issue is direct internet access. So what companies do in order to avoid the appliance sprawl, they use MPLS networks and they backhaul traffic over a private network from the different distributed locations into a central location. This used to be okay when the volume of internet traffic was relatively low. Today, we now have a vast majority of our traffic going to the internet and to the cloud, and backhauling internet traffic over expensive MPLS links makes no sense. Yet, customers are forced to consider this option because they want to avoid appliance sprawl. So this is an appliance avoidance issue. Finally, again, because the traffic flows change, appliances are not well suited to cover mobile users and cloud access. For example, if I have a mobile user traveling globally in Asia, it makes no sense to backhaul their traffic all the way to headquarters where the firewall solution is available just to secure their access to the cloud. As a result, we enable mobile users to access the cloud directly, and the entire network security stack that we spend so much money on is basically useless. This is a lack of visibility and control problem as a result of the mobilization and cloudification of the enterprise. So let's look more specifically at what those challenges pertain. So what's appliance sprawl, right? Some people think it's just buying all of these appliances and just putting them in place. But in fact, we have to go through a very elaborate process throughout the life cycle of the appliance. We have to look at our requirements, both from a business and technical perspective, understand where the appliance fits in the network so they can process all the relevant traffic. We, of course, need to find the money for them. Then we need to size them appropriately. This is a big deal. We have to understand not just what our traffic requirements or security requirements will be today, but what they will be in the future. We then have to maintain them. We have to configure the policies, the connectivity, etc. And then from time to time, we have to upgrade the software. Imagine a vulnerability has been found in one of these appliances, and now we have to patch not just one, but all of our appliances that basically suffer from that vulnerability. This is a lot of work. Many companies fall behind on their patching because of the resource-intensive aspect of this business, and as a result, they're becoming more vulnerable. The same is true for new capabilities. You want to get a new capability, you have to upgrade. Upgrade is effort, so you fall behind on those capabilities too. And then ultimately, you run out of capacity. It may happen mid-cycle when you're not prepared for it, so you go through a forced upgrade, and you have to replace products in the beginning of their life, in the middle of their life cycle. Finally, they become end of life. You have to retire them and spend more money on refreshing them. So essentially, all of this life cycle is something that we've been living with for the past 20 years. This is the way business is done, but it doesn't have to be this way. And we'll talk more about that in the upcoming slides. Moving to the next set of issues, so if we look at direct internet access and the appliance sprawl, it means that we have a trade-off here. Either we deploy appliances everywhere and we get security at every one of our locations, or we backhaul the traffic. So we save on appliances, we save on management complexity, but we're using precious resources, our MPLS network, to move traffic that does not need the service levels that MPLS provides. This is a trade-off this is a no-win situation for many enterprises. But again, this is just the options that are available, so you have to choose whatever is the lesser evil for you. Next is the mobility and cloud access. So if you have to access your data center, and data center is protected by a firewall, a typical VPN scenario will have a user opening up a VPN tunnel from wherever the user is all the way to that data center firewall. If this is a global type situation, a user in Tokyo and a data center in New York, the user will experience a substantial latency when they traverse the open internet because there are no SLAs on them. Why is it? Because they have to connect to the appliance in the specific location where the WAN service they need exists. So that's a challenge. High latency, user experience issues. Everybody hates their VPN because of that. The next challenge is accessing, or is the fragmentation of policies and the hybrid cloud. We used to have one data center, now we have two. We have one in the cloud and one on-premise. We don't necessarily have the same solution protecting both of these data centers, so we already have to maintain two policies, and we have to log in to the particular data center we want to work with. This is inefficient, inconvenient, and basically we are basically downgrading our user experience and our efficiency and our productivity because we want to go from, we want to leverage the cloud infrastructure capabilities. And finally, as I mentioned, mobile users accessing SaaS applications directly. The challenge here is that they are bypassing the network security stack altogether because nobody wants to get into a choke point somewhere in the world where a firewall is available just to get to the cloud. That just doesn't make sense, and users will essentially revolt if we try to force them to do it. So what's the path forward? So Gartner has recently defined a new type of new category called Firewall as a Service. It's basically the notion that we can provide or deliver firewall services as a cloud service instead of an on-premise appliance. It's supposed to be simpler, faster to deploy, because you don't have to deploy appliances everywhere. It's easier to maintain because you can patch your cloud firewall, and that patch immediately affects all locations. It can be flexible, so you can pay for what you use, and it can provide built-in resiliency instead of planning for resiliency at every single location. And finally, as a cloud service, you can centralize the policy. You have better visibility to all the traffic because you don't have to aggregate it from all the different appliances. And you can basically deliver a lot of security capabilities without the concern that those security capabilities will overwhelm the particular appliance models that you happen to have in your locations. There are challenges too. So how do you get an effective network connection to this firewall cloud, a cloud-based firewall? How do you get latency to work for you? And also, you are moving critical security functionality to the cloud, and this is something that has to be looked into too. Overall, Gartner ranks firewall as a service as a potentially high benefit capability because it can really transform both the network and the security architecture for businesses. So what does it require? So essentially it requires a lot of the things that we expect from a firewall. So a firewall has to cover both the wide area network and internet traffic. It needs to be able to inspect the traffic for threats, both unencrypted and encrypted, and it needs to provide VPN capability into the network. It has to support segmentation, so that includes VLANs, routing, NAT capabilities, etc. It needs to be user and application aware. This is a core characteristic of the next generation firewall, as well as looking at URLs for malicious and phishing sites. And finally, that's the cloud aspect of firewall as a service. It has to be usage-based. It has to be quickly deployable. It has to be seamlessly upgraded, elastic, so you can add more capacity without essentially buying new appliances mid-cycle. So all of these things, essentially the bottom line here is that you need to have the features that a true firewall has, but be able to deliver it as a cloud capability in order to save basically this dreaded lifecycle management cost that we discussed. So what other options do you have to get a firewall in the cloud? One of the options is Secure Web Gateway in the cloud. Essentially, this offering has been around for a while, and it provides some of the capabilities. I think the most notable gap is that there is no wide area network connectivity or security. It's only northbound, internet-bound traffic that can be processed by a Secure Web Gateway. So if your firewall handles your WAN connectivity and your security, you simply cannot replace it with a Secure Web Gateway. It is a partial solution, and it doesn't fit. If you think about appliance stacking, there are providers, service providers, solution providers, that will take firewalls and stack them in the cloud. So they will basically move the firewall away from the customer premise into their premise. The challenge there is that in the end, there is an appliance, and there are all the costs and all the complexity that we discussed. So either the customer pay for all of this complexity as a service, or in the end, they actually have to deal with it. So for example, if you have 7 locations and you have 7 hosted firewalls in different regions of the world, these are still 7 entities that has to be managed separately. And you're still facing a lot of the complexity that we discussed before. And of course, if you outgrow your firewall, then somebody has to pay for this upgrade, either the provider or the customer in some form of their subscription. So the bottom line here is that in order to deliver firewall as a service, we have to deal, A, with all the traffic that a firewall needs to deal with, and B, we have to eliminate the notion of the appliance. If the appliance is still there, a lot of the challenges are still there, and therefore the payment and the cost benefits and the management benefits will simply not be as substantial. So what does Cato provide? What I'm going to present today is network plus security as a service. So Cato was founded on the vision that both networking and security must converge in the cloud. Because if you continue to maintain them as discrete elements, as appliances, as point solutions, we're basically going to get into a point where this infrastructure becomes too costly and too risky and too complex, and most enterprises will not be able to handle it especially given all the dynamics in the business, the shortages in skilled IT personnel. This is just a dynamic that will become unsustainable. So what do we propose? We propose to rethink the network first. We are taking all the different network elements, the headquarters, the data center, the branches, the cloud infrastructure, the mobile users, and we connect them to a new network in the cloud. This network is the new perimeter. It carries both wide area network and internet traffic in a cloud-based network. Now that we have the traffic consolidated in the cloud, we can now enforce a set of cloud-based security services which are built directly into the network. No appliances, just the security capabilities processing the traffic between the different elements and between those elements to the internet. And as we converge the network and the security, we're now in a position to enforce a single policy across all users, locations, and resources. We don't have to configure specific policies in physical firewalls, either in cloud firewalls, more in the mobile type of security solutions. We are now able to enforce a unified policy across all traffic. In the next few slides, I'm going to explain how we are delivering on this capability technically, but this is the high-level picture. So the first thing is the network. At the top part, what you are seeing is our global SLA-backed WAN backbone. This is a collection of POPs which we placed all over the world, and they are running our fully integrated network and security stack. We provide things like routing, reliability, so error correction and optimization. We are selecting the most appropriate path across our backbone to carry the traffic, and we of course secure it. The POPs are interconnected by tier 1 carriers. So we are able to obtain SLAs from those carriers to our traffic and then give them to our customers. So instead of using an open internet link, when there is no commercially available SLA and latency can vary wildly, including packet loss and jitter, we're now able to provide an SLA-backed long-haul service to our customers. How do you connect the enterprise to this backbone? We have multiple connectivity options. We can use an IPsec tunnel from an existing firewall, for example, in a data center, to tunnel the traffic from that location to the nearest POP. If we're looking at a branch that does not have an existing equipment that can be used, we provide the Kato socket. Kato socket is a small tunneling device. It has no business policies, no security capabilities. It just forwards the traffic from that location to the POP where all the processing occurs. We have a virtual version of the socket which allows us to connect cloud data centers like in AWS or in Azure directly into the wide area network. And finally, a Kato client for Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS allows mobile users to dynamically connect to the nearest POP and obtain access to all WAN resources as well as secure access to the internet. So this is the connectivity portion of our story. Now we are extending our capabilities to augment and potentially replace MPLS links. So the Kato socket can tunnel traffic not just to the Kato cloud, but it can also leverage existing MPLS connectivity, if available, to route traffic based on policies that the customer can define in our system. But what you see here is you can really optimize things. So you can send internet traffic to Kato and avoid backhauling that traffic over your MPLS links. And then you can send a specific latency-sensitive traffic or business-critical traffic that you really want to use MPLS for over the MPLS. Many of our customers, ultimately, because of our SLA-backed backbone, are considering an MPLS elimination altogether because we have this unique capability, and we can guarantee the latency between their locations. The next layer is the security. So now that, as we discussed, all the traffic is consolidated in the cloud, we can now apply a set of enterprise-grade security capabilities. The capabilities that we have are a next-generation firewall VPN with full application awareness. We provide a secure web gateway that includes a built-in URL filtering that basically protects users from phishing sites or malware sites. And again, this capability is available for everybody. It can be a mobile user connected to Cato, or a branch location, or a data center. Advanced threat prevention includes anti-malware capabilities for both SSL traffic and non-SSL traffic. And then we provide secure cloud and mobile access to mobile users, again, wherever they are. We don't have to backhaul them all the way to a firewall in the data center. They basically connect to the nearest POP, and from there they get a fully secure access to the internet. Our management application also provides a lot of forensic capabilities that are included with the product. Now, all of these services will work for the capacity that you license from us. You don't have to worry about upgrades or sizing. You basically plug into the Cato Cloud, and those services are fully available to process your data. Okay? Never upgrade an appliance again just because you run out of capacity or because you want to activate advanced features which will drop your throughput dramatically. The last piece is the policy. So we provide a cloud-based management application that manages all aspects of the product, both the networking aspects, the security aspects, and provide full analytical view of what's happening in your network. So you get great visibility for troubleshooting, for security incidents. All of that is managed centrally. And it's both available to end customers that can go and manage their individual network within the Cato multi-tenant environment, or for partners that can manage multiple customer accounts, but with the added benefit of very low friction. So there's no longer a need for the partner or your service provider to reach out into your network, upgrade your appliances, patch them, configure them. All of this is no longer needed. It's all done through the cloud-based management application. So this is the unified policy aspect of our product. So I'm going to show now several simple demos, short demos that show the simplicity of using Cato. Let's take scenario number one. Right? So we have a headquarters, and we want to establish a VPN connection between the different sites. Now, everybody that established a full mesh VPN, site-to-site VPN, knows that there are many steps involved. You have to establish the tunnels, you have to configure them, you have to go through different encryption type protocols. If you are unfortunate enough to have firewalls from different vendors, this problem is even bigger. You can experience that when you have an M&A type scenario. You bought a company buying a company, they have different brands of firewalls. Now you have a full mesh in a multi-vendor environment. Very complicated and painful. So what do we propose? So let's take a look at this. So we're now going to show how we take an existing enterprise connected to Cato, and we are going to connect a new site. So we are selecting the add new site. We are naming the site, in this case London. We are going to define this is a branch site. It's using a socket X1500, which is our tunneling device. We are going to specify where it's at, type in the credentials that we want that socket to use, and we define the IP range associated with that site. This is it, and we are going to press OK. So now we have a new site, and as you can see on the right side, we have been notified that the customer, a socket on a new site has been appearing in our UI, And now we are going to associate that socket with the London site. And this is it. We now have a new site connected to our network, and all we need now to do is to go and provide it with when policy, which means which locations should this site connect to. So you can see here that I'm selecting the new London site, and I'm specifying that it can connect to our data center and to our headquarters. And this is it. This is the full mesh, right? No more IPsec encryptions, definitions, testing. We simply connected London to Cato, and we have logically defined what other locations London should connect to. Very simple. So very simple setup, all done through a single interface, very simple to troubleshoot. Let's look at the second example. So we have a mobile user that needs to gain access to our headquarters data center using VPN, and also needs to access directly some SaaS applications. And what we want is that it's going to be simple, optimized, and secure. That's the objective. So let's look at it. So what we have here is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to show how we configure Salesforce to accept logins only from the Cato Cloud. This is called IP range restriction, and a security feature that ensures that only users coming through the Cato network can actually access Salesforce. This is a great feature against account takeover and credentials lost. How does a user get into the Cato network? Before we show it, we're going to attempt to log in without using Cato. And what you can see here is that the login was rejected because the user simply went directly to Salesforce, and that didn't work. Now we're going to use the Cato client. We're going to activate this on the mobile device. We're connected, simple. Now you can see that the user, Michael Jordan, showed up in our user interface. Now he is connected to the Cato network, and now when the user logs in to Salesforce, he will be allowed to enter the system because they're coming through the Cato network. So why is it important? It's important because if somebody steals Michael Jordan's password, it's not going to be enough to gain access to Salesforce. So the consolidation of the business to the cloud network allows central control of access to cloud applications. Let's now look at the second scenario, which is connecting to WAN resources in the data center. Okay, so again, the same thing. We are going to connect the user to the cloud network. The user shows up. So now he's part of the network. We will go and configure the security policy for that user. The first step will be to configure access to the WAN. Of course, this can be done on a whole site, on a whole group of users, but now for the purpose of this, we'll show a single user, which will now give access to our headquarters, our data center, and to Amazon AWS. So now you can see how we, in a simple rule, enabled access to both cloud resources and physical resources. No more splitting, no more multiple solutions, simple and easy access. Now we're going to enforce another rule, and this rule will prevent access for our user, for our Michael Jordan, to SaaS applications. Specifically, we're going to prevent access to Dropbox. Okay, so you can see it here. And now, when the user attempts to access Dropbox, we're going to see it in a minute on the left side. We can see that the user receives an error message from Cato says that the policy of the organization prohibits access to this application. Okay, so again, this is a good example of how the overall policy enforcement, central policy enforcement is done in Cato. Now that we have seen the demos, I'd like to cover a couple of case studies that basically focus on our customers. These are all live production customers. I'm going to start with the appliance elimination case study, which is kind of the basic use case we're talking about. So in this particular case, we have a customer, UMHS. It's a regional multi-site customer. They actually have a blended network. 6 of their locations are using firewalls in VPN full mesh, and 6 are using MPLS MPLS-enabled branches, so they are backhauling to the data center. They do not have their own firewalls. And UMHS deployed 6 UTMs in their firewall branches, and they also have about 100 mobile users. And their challenge was that they had, it was very complicated for the very small IT team to manage all this distributed environment and also the overall blended network. So what we created for them essentially is a single network where we went and eliminated the firewalls in the 6 firewall locations and replaced them with Cato sockets. And we even moved one of the MPLS locations where the contract expired. The customer replaced the link with an internet link and connected that location to Cato 2. So now, and finally, the customer plugged in their 100 mobile users into the Cato Cloud 2, and that became the way for them to access the data center resources through Cato. What you see here is another benefit, which is Cato is not an all or nothing type situation. We now have a blended environment. You can see 7 sites are on Cato, 5 sites are still on the legacy network, and they all coexist, and the customer can gradually move locations to the Cato network, and ultimately they achieve a unified network, all consolidated in the cloud, central security policy, no management overhead. It's a great fit for a customer that are looking to really reduce the grunt work of keeping up a complex, somewhat convoluted even, network and security environment. So that's the appliance elimination use case. Let's look at another use case which is kind of interesting too. If you look at Spotted, so I thought I was showing just the problem. If we look at this customer, Spotted, they're actually a high-tech company that has relatively few physical locations, but a very large number of AWS data centers. And previously, their users had to log in on a data center by data center kind of access in order to access the different applications in the different data centers. What the customer wanted is a simple way to consolidate all of these data centers into a single network that, based on security and network access policies, the mobile users can use. They don't have to log in individually to every location. And this is what we created for them. You can see here the headquarters, mobile users, but more notably, you can see here 9 AWS data centers in the US, Europe, Asia, China. All of them are now connected into a single network, and the customer can easily direct or can easily grant access to the users, and they can get everywhere they need to get to without dealing with the individual complexity of the Amazon AWS VPCs that host their application. Okay? Another good example of how we solve a problem that currently would require either individual configuration for Amazon firewalls or deployment of virtual firewalls from commercial vendors, which is both a costly and potentially performance challenged proposition. Just connect everything to Cato and you can get where you need to get. Probably the last use case I would like to show This is a larger deployment. This is a global manufacturer with 36 sites. Initially, what the customer did here is they connected 36 physical firewalls with IPsec tunnels to Cato and added to it an Amazon AWS, an Azure, and an SAP HANA instance. Now, what they're doing gradually is replacing end-of-life firewalls with Cato sockets. And that's what's happening. In this environment, they already replaced some of their firewalls with Cato. And again, a good example of how we gradually, in a phased way, can move a customer from their existing legacy environment to the new Cato network. So these were the case studies. What I'd like to do now is to start summarizing our presentation today. One of the main benefits of Cato is really convergence, what we call Cato 5-in-1. So instead of putting another point solutions in your environment that you have to manage, we're actually converging, we're collapsing multiple products that you have to buy separately into one integrated platform. The first part is a secure web gateway. You get from us a way to secure your traffic, both on the internet and on the WAN. The Cato backbone replaces your MPLS connectivity. We can actually give you SLA-backed connectivity between your locations, optimized connectivity, but at a much more affordable cost. Next, we can actually replace your physical firewalls because we handle both wide area network and internet traffic. We add SD-WAN capabilities, so if you want to augment your MPLS links with internet links and you want to optimize kind of how you route traffic, this is included too, with a combination of the Cato socket and the Cato cloud policy-based routing. And finally, we provide CASB capabilities. We would link your cloud data center and your mobile users and provide both simplified access, security, and visibility. So the different challenges associated with those resources no longer require a dedicated point solution. This is the 5-in-1 premise. Most customers start somewhere and then consolidate or expand the deployment to cover more and more capabilities. And that's essentially what Firewall as a service or network security as a service is all about. It's really converging all these distinct domains with their product capabilities, management capabilities, the need to all this lifecycle management into one resource that, for the most part, is managed by the service provider. And I think you will experience substantial cost reduction and simplification of your environment using this architecture. I'm going to touch now on how we quickly move a legacy environment into a Cato environment in 3 simple steps. In the first step, we can take only a portion of your traffic. We will take just the internet traffic and connect that traffic or tunnel that traffic to the Cato cloud and enforce security on that traffic. Next, we will connect your data center. Once we connect your data center, we can now provide WAN, wide area network connectivity, for those locations. At that point, any firewall that was used to secure both the wide area network and the internet can be decommissioned. And next, we would plug mobile users and cloud infrastructures into Cato and establish coverage for the entire business. So this sounds simple. It is simple and it is gradual, and the order in which we will do all this is really customer dependent. We can start by plugging in just your mobile users and your cloud infrastructure and look at that particular use case, or we can use other type of scenarios. But it is a low friction process, and you can test our capabilities very, very quickly to determine if they fit your needs. So to summarize, what Cato's Firewall as a Service provide is appliance elimination. We basically allow you to eliminate your distributed networking and security appliances and simplify not just the management, but also reduce the cost. We provide direct secure internet access everywhere. You don't have to backhaul the traffic to where the security is, because with the Cato Cloud, the security is available everywhere. And because the security is available in the cloud, you don't have to be limited to the small footprint of the appliances you typically have in distributed locations. You can have enterprise-grade security regardless of where the users and the locations are. And finally, instead of thinking about your mobile and cloud resources as an afterthought, as something that was not designed or baked into the design of firewalls and wide area networks, now you have a level playing field. All of your different resources, they are all part of the network, and they're getting the same treatment and the same service levels. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I will hand it over to Bonnie for Q&A.
Yishai, we'd also like to thank you for a great presentation. If you had any questions, we'll soon start with the Q&A session. But before that, we have a new special offer we'd like to get your feedback on. Would you be interested in a free estimate of your networking and security cost reduction using Cato? You can select the following now. Okay, we'll give it just a couple more seconds. Okay, great. Yishai, you know what? I see we have a lot of great questions here, so let's start with the Q&A. First question, how are you different from Zscaler?
So Zscaler is a secure web gateway, and as we have discussed throughout this presentation, a secure web gateway only processes internet-bound traffic. In order to fully replace a firewall, you have to be able to process both wide area network traffic and internet traffic, so the firewall can be removed. Zscaler cannot process wide area network traffic, so they are not a firewall elimination play. The Cato, by design, addresses both types of traffic, so we are, in fact, have customers that eliminated firewalls and architecturally are designed for firewall elimination.
Okay, great. And the next question is, let's see, we have, can I test your solution without major changes to my network?
Yes, so as I mentioned, we have multiple ways to reduce friction. We can connect resources like cloud infrastructure and mobile, which basically are zero friction. We can still deploy sockets and use a switch to basically split the traffic away, so split a portion of the traffic to Cato. So most of the traffic will still go on the legacy network and only a subset will go to Cato. So these are all different options for what we call gradual deployment, and that will be my suggestion. So definitely you can test us on a very small subset of your network and see the results, and then gradually deploy in production. Right now we have customers with a relatively large number of sites, but still only a quarter of their network is on Cato, and they're gradually moving the rest of their sites to Cato.
Okay, great. And it looks like we have time for one more question. Which security features do you currently offer?
So we are currently offering a next generation firewall with application control, so you can specify application level policies. A secure web gateway that provides URL filtering, so we basically continuously update our URL filtering capabilities, and you will, and if a customer attempts to access a phishing site or a malware site or otherwise prohibited or unauthorized site, the URL filtering capability will stop that user from accessing that site. This is a very effective means to reducing malware infection and credential theft. Next, we have a full anti-malware capability in the product for both SSL and non-SSL traffic. This is very important because SSL inspection is the one thing that really brings firewalls to their knees. The fact that you can get from us this without being concerned of what it will do to your throughput or your performance is, of course, a very big benefit. Now, Cato is continuously rolling out new security features in the cloud. That's what's great about the cloud. We can deploy those new capabilities very quickly, and we do it often. And customer basically can go to the management interface, and if they're licensed for the feature, they basically turn it on, set up the policies, and off they go. They don't have to do any preparation or setup or upgrades or patches just to get new capabilities. So again, this is something that allows us to advance the product, incorporate customer feedback at a much higher rate than appliance-based solutions. Another benefit for cloud-based infrastructure.
All right, great. I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us today, and of course to Yishai. You all will be receiving an email with a link to view this webinar again within a couple of days, and we look forward to meeting you at our next webinar. Thanks, everybody.